I think John Paul II is crucially important to not only a history of the Catholic Church in the modern world, but to the history of the modern world, period. He had a distinctive, unique, penetrating insight into the way modernity worked and didn't work. This rock-solid conviction of his that if you get the idea of the human person wrong, if you think of the human person as simply congeries of desires, if you think of the human person as simply material, if there's no spiritual aspect to life, if there's no aspiration to a higher consciousness, then you're going to make a mess of just about everything else: culture, politics, economics, etc. That was an enormously important theme to raise up at the end of the 20th century and the turn into the third millennium. I think his understanding that culture is the driver of history over the long haul was terribly important for a world that had either fallen for the Jacobin fallacy, power is what, quest for power drives history, or the Marxist fallacy, history is simply the exhaust fumes of the means of production, or the utilitarian fallacy, if it itches, scratch it, and everything will work out as long as everybody keeps scratching their own itches. He lifted up a higher vision, a truer vision of the human condition. And by leading a revolution of conscience throughout the 1980s in Central and Eastern Europe that made the political revolution of 1989 possible, the nonviolent political revolution of 1989 possible, he showed a different way forward into the human future. As far as the Catholic Church is concerned, the 20 years after the Second Vatican Council, arguably the most important event in Catholic history since the 16th century, had been extremely turbulent. There was beginning to be a lack of doctrinal and moral clarity in the Church, disciplinary failures, which led to all sorts of terrible things, including the sexual abuse of young people and adults. John Paul II reballasted the Catholic Church over 26 years, working with Joseph Ratzinger, who would later become his papal successor as Benedict XVI. He gave an authoritative interpretation to Vatican II. And if we look at the living parts of the world church in this third decade of the 21st century, it's those parts of the church that have embraced John Paul II and Benedict XVI's view of Vatican II, of the evangelical mission of the church. The church is here to bring people to meet the Lord Jesus Christ and to incorporate them into his body, the church. Those are the living parts of the world church. The dying parts of the world church are those parts that ignored or did not accept that interpretation of the council, and that are still trying to make the project that I've called for 20 years Catholic Light work. Well, Catholic Light is like Coca-Cola Light. Catholic Light leads to Catholic Zero, as Coke Light led to Coke Zero. You get this Catholicism, very visible in Germany today, for example, that is essentially formless. It's a religion of the zeitgeist. It's a woke discussion group. It's a simulacrum of authentic Christianity. So by pointing a different direction in the face of intense cultural pressures, John Paul II, with a strong assist from Joseph Ratzinger, pointed the Catholic Church into a viable future in the 21st century.